He didn't play linebacker, he redefined it. In a league where even Hall of Famers felt fear, Dick Butkus turned the middle of the field into a disaster zone. Chicago-born, Illinois, forged, drafted 3rd overall by the Bears. A rookie with 5 interceptions and game-turning hits that made future legends flinch. There will never be another Dick Butkus, because no one else made Heisman voters break tradition for a defender, or force the whole league to prepare for one man like he was a coming storm. What turned an ordinary Southside kid into football's most feared force? And why has the blueprint never been repeated? The answer starts where the myth begins. Dick Butkus grew up on Chicago's South Side, where factories rattled the windows and toughness wasn't a choice. It was the only way through. Born in 1942 to a Lithuanian-American family, he learned early that grit and loyalty mattered more than talk. At Chicago Vocational High School, Butkus looked like he belonged on a loading dock, not just a football field. Coaches saw the way he attacked every play, fullback on offense, linebacker on defense, and never let up, even in practice. Teammates said you could hear him before you saw him. He didn't just set the tone, he was the tone. When Butkus took his game to the University of Illinois in 1962, the expectations followed him. Butkus didn't flinch. He started both ways. Center on offense, linebacker on defense. Something almost no one did at that level, even then. The Illini ran through the Big Ten with Butkus anchoring the middle, and in 1963, Illinois finished 8-1-1 and punched their ticket to the Rose Bowl. That year, he played nearly every snap, led the defense that allowed less than 9 points per game, and delivered a performance against Michigan that still echoes. 55 minutes on the field, double-digit solo tackles, and a goal line stand that left the Wolverines staring at nothing. Butkus' style was pure Chicago. No flash, all punishment. He practiced like it was game day, every day. By his junior year, he was a 2-time consensus All-American and the Big Ten's most valuable player. The country couldn't ignore him. In 1963, Heisman voters put him 6th, unheard of for a defender. A year later, he finished 3rd, ahead of nearly every quarterback and running back in the country. Reporters wrote that he erased entire ground games by himself. It wasn't just stats, it was the way he made offenses look for exits. By the time he left Illinois, every scout in the country knew his name. And every NFL team wanted the kid who'd turned the Southside steel into football's sharpest edge. In 1965, the Chicago Bears didn't just draft a linebacker. They doubled down on destiny. George Hollis took Dick Butkus at number 3, then grabbed Gale Sayers right after at 4, 2 Hall of Famers in one round. The city called it a lightning strike, but for Hollis, it was a bet that toughness and brilliance could share the same field. Butkus had offers from the AFL too. Denver and Kansas City threw more money his way, but playing for his hometown, for Hollis, meant more than a bigger check. The Bears scouts called him a force multiplier. They said his presence alone would change the way offenses lined up. The league found out fast. On opening day, Butkus was already calling signals and throwing his weight around like a seasoned veteran. By week 3 against Detroit, he picked off Milt Plum twice. One of those turnovers set up the winning score. Reporters started using words like malice in motion and collision course when describing number 51. Offenses didn't just plan for him, they planned around him. By week 9, Green Bay's Jim Taylor tried to break through the line and found Butkus waiting. Butkus stripped the ball, fell on it, and killed the Packers' last real shot. That wasn't luck. That was anticipation, and hands like a bear trap. The rookie stat line didn't read like a rookie at all. 5 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries, and a reputation that grew every Sunday. In week 12, against the Colts, Butkus forced 2 turnovers and delivered a hit on Lenny Moore that left the Colts sideline silent. Johnny Unitas, never one for flattery, told the press, He's the fastest 245-pounder you ever want to meet. By the end of his first season, coaches around the league were telling their quarterbacks, know where 51 is, or pay for it. Sports Illustrated wrote that he played linebacker the way some guys drive snowplows, angrily, and the field got very clean. The Bears hadn't just drafted a player, they'd unleashed a weather system. And from that point on, every offense in the NFL had to account for Dick Butkus before they even broke the huddle. By the end of the 1960s, Dick Butkus wasn't just the face of linebacker play. He was the measuring stick. The numbers alone sound made up. 8 straight Pro Bowls, 6 first-team All-Pro selections, 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1969 and 1970, and a spot on the NFL's 1960s All-Decade team. When the league celebrated its 75th and 100th anniversaries, Butkus was on both all-time teams. No debate, no footnotes. He finished his career with 22 interceptions and 27 fumble recoveries, an NFL record for defenders when he retired. Unofficially, he logged over 1,000 tackles in just 9 seasons. That's not just production. It's a turnover factory in shoulder pads, all while quarterbacks and running backs learned to scan for number 51 before every snap. But those numbers came from something deeper than raw power or rage. Butkus made violence look like science. His stance was always low, knees bent, weight forward, ready to explode. He read centers and guards for the smallest twitch, then knifed through gaps before blockers even set their feet. His tackles weren't just collisions, they were textbook. Head up, shoulders square, arms wrapping through the ball. He didn't just bring a runner down, he tried to take the ball with him. The signature move was the wrap and rake. Drive the runner backward, then rip at the ball with both hands. It wasn't luck that led to all those fumble recoveries. It was a plan executed with surgical precision. Opponents and coaches saw it up close. Vince Lombardi told his Packers, "Don't run at Butkus. You won't like what happens." Tom Landry warned his centers, "If you tip your eyes, he'll know the play before the snap." Quarterbacks like Bart Starr and Fran Tarkenton admitted they changed plays at the line, just to avoid testing the middle. Butkus studied film like a detective, memorizing tendencies, counting linemen's knuckles, and listening for cadence shifts. He baited screens and short routes, then closed like a trapdoor. His sideline-to-sideline range covered tight ends, running backs, and anyone foolish enough to try a seam route. Butkus didn't need gimmicks or cheap shots. His violence was clean, his technique relentless. He made the middle of the field a place where plays went to die, and where turnovers were born. Every stat, every honor, every highlight reel is a receipt for a standard that still haunts the position. For 9 years, the Chicago Bears had the ultimate enforcer, and the rest of the league had to live with it. Fear wasn't just a side effect of Dick Butkus, it was part of the Bears' game plan. Opposing coaches didn't just warn their players about him, they rewrote their playbooks to steer clear of number 51. Vince Lombardi told his Packers, "Don't run at Butkus. You won't like what happens." Tom Landry's centers practiced silent snaps just to keep Butkus from reading their eyes. By the late 1960s, the film didn't lie. Teams ran fewer plays up the middle against Chicago than anywhere else in the league. Quarterbacks like Bart Starr admitted he'd check down or audible away from the middle, not because the scheme called for it, but because Butkus was standing there, daring them to try. The numbers back it up, even if they're buried between the lines. During Butkus's peak, the Bears' defense saw a drop in inside rush attempts. Teams bounced runs outside or called screens, hoping to avoid meeting him in the hole. In 1969, Pittsburgh reached the red zone and tried to punch it in. Butkus read the play, dropped into coverage, and picked off the pass, ending the Steelers' best drive of the day. The next season, the Lions lined up at the goal line, only to watch Butkus stonewall back-to-back runs, forcing a turnover on downs. These weren't just big plays. They were warnings, broadcast to the rest of the league. Test the middle at your own risk. Quarterbacks sped up their throws. Receivers hesitated on slants. Offensive lines shifted protection, sometimes double-teaming a linebacker just to buy a second's piece. In an era before advanced stats, Butkus still warped the field. Coaches charted how often teams threw short or bailed on deep routes over the middle. The tape showed it. Fewer targets, more checkdowns, and a lot of nervous glances toward the second level. Butkus's greatness didn't ride shotgun with a dynasty. The Bears went 48, 74, and 4 across his 9 seasons, with some years so bleak they felt like punishment. In 1969, Chicago finished 1-13, but Butkus still won Defensive Player of the Year. He led the team in tackles, forced turnovers, and kept games close when the offense sputtered. Teammates called him the only reason to keep fighting. Critics love to talk about rings, but Butkus played on teams that gave him no chance at glory. He didn't need a trophy to prove he was the standard. He forced the league to invent new ways to measure dominance. Fear became a stat, and Butkus was the only one who ever led the league in it. By 1970, the price of playing linebacker, like a battering ram, finally caught up to Dick Butkus. In a mid-season game, his right knee gave out. Torn ligaments, swelling, pain that never left. He kept strapping it up, kept taking the field, but each week the joint got stiffer and the limp a little more obvious. Over the next 4 years, doctors worked on the knee 5 different times, carving, stitching, and injecting cortisone just to get him through Sunday. Painkillers dulled the edge, but the damage only got worse. By the start of the 1973 season, the knee was so unstable that teammates could hear it grind. Butkus tried to gut it out, but in October, after a brutal series against Atlanta, he pulled himself from the game. He just couldn't chase anymore. He missed the last 5 games that year, and by December, the decision was made. Butkus walked away from football, not on his terms, but because the body simply wouldn't cooperate. Retirement didn't bring peace. The pain lingered, and so did the feeling that something wasn't right. In 1974, Butkus filed a lawsuit against the Bears and their medical staff, claiming they'd rushed him back, masked the pain with injections, and never warned him about the long-term risks. The suit spelled out what he'd lost, not just years off his career, but years off his mobility. He accused the team of willfully putting his health in jeopardy for short-term gain. The case never made it to trial. In 1976, the Bears settled for around $600,000, a rare outcome in an era when players were expected to keep quiet and play hurt. Butkus's fight in court set a precedent. It forced the league to start rethinking how teams handled injuries, and it made clear that even the toughest player in football could be broken by the game he loved. In 1979, Dick Butkus entered the Pro Football Hall of Fame on his first ballot. The league retired his number 51, a gesture reserved for legends who set a bar no one else could reach. Butkus didn't just leave behind a highlight reel. He left a blueprint. Every linebacker who straps on pads and lines up in the middle knows the standard is spelled out in his name. In 1985, the Butkus Award was created to honor the best linebacker in college football. By 2008, it expanded to recognize the top high school and professional linebackers too. The award isn't just a trophy, it's a challenge. Winners are measured by more than tackles or sacks. They're judged on leadership, technique, and the same relentless drive that made Butkus famous. Butkus used his name for more than football. He launched the I Play Clean campaign, taking a stand against performance-enhancing drugs and pushing for honest, healthy competition. His foundation reached out to schools across the country, urging young athletes to chase greatness without shortcuts. For Butkus, clean play wasn't just about avoiding penalties. It was about respect for the game and for yourself. Off the field, Butkus became a familiar face in broadcasting booths and on television screens. He played the enforcer with a wink, showing up in commercials and sitcoms, always carrying that Chicago edge. Even so, the shadow he cast was always about football. His highlight tapes became required viewing for every linebacker with big dreams. Coaches from Pop Warner to the NFL still use his film to teach what the position is supposed to look like. Violent, yes, but honest and exacting. Modern linebackers, Jack Lambert, Mike Singletary, Ray Lewis, get compared to Butkus, but the echoes are never quite as loud. The rules have changed, the game has changed, but the template remains. When the NFL named its 75th and 100th anniversary teams, Butkus was right there in the middle, still haunting the field. When he passed away in 2023, tributes poured in from every corner of the football world. Butkus is gone, but the standard he set isn't going anywhere. The middle of the field still belongs to number 51. Dick Butkus retired from the NFL in 1973 with 22 interceptions and 27 fumble recoveries, a record at the time for linebackers. He was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1979, and the Chicago Bears retired his number 51 in recognition of his impact. Despite playing on teams with a combined record of just 48 wins, 74 losses, and 4 ties, and never winning a championship, Butkus's legacy is measured by the standard he set for his position. Medical records and court documents confirm that a severe right knee injury in 1970 ended his career early, leading to a landmark lawsuit and settlement with the Bears. Some questions remain, such as how his style would translate under today's rules, and whether complete defensive statistics from his era might further define his greatness. The Butkus Award, created in 1985, now honors the nation's top linebacker at multiple levels, ensuring his standard remains part of the game. Dick Butkus died on October 5th, 2023, but the institutions and records he left behind continue to define what it means to play linebacker in the NFL.